Welcome to this EVWEB training module M3c, Export Functions in EVWEB. The target audience for this training module are national competent authorities, marketing authorization holders, sponsors of clinical trials, research institutions and academia. Following the completion of this training module, you should be able to understand the implementation of the access policy in EVWEB, how to use the ISSR export tool to obtain L2A and L2B access to ISSRs held within the database, the export function to obtain medical literature monitoring service cases, and to be able to export previously sent ISSRs from your organization. The implementation of the access policy for national competent authorities allows them full access to the data held within new vigilance. This is also called Level 3 access. Marketing authorization holders have full access to all the data sent by that organization, and this is called sender-based access, also known as Level 3 access. Marketing authorization holders also have partially restricted access to ISSRs sent by other organizations, where those ISSRs concern suspected drugs for which they hold a marketing authorization. This product must be entered and validated in the EVMPD in order for the access to be granted. This level of access is called Pharmacovigilance obligations, levels L2A and L2B. All other ISSRs that do not fit into the above two categories will have the restricted access L1, also known as public access. No access to clinical trial SUSAR data will be given apart from the sender-based access. This diagram shows how the information in Article 57 EVMPD is used to grant access to marketing authorization holders to ISSRs submitted by other organizations. An EVWEB user that is accessing the EVWEB system through a headquarter organization will be linked to the Article 57 information through the use of the EV headquarter ID in the EVMPD. So submissions to the EVMPD are the basis for provision of data. The linkage is through the product information and the substances contained within the product. This information is used to find ISSRs that have suspected or interacting drugs that contain the same substance. The information in the ISSR has to go through a recoding process to be able to be identified against which EVMPD entries it is associated. Each day, the EVWEB system automatically updates the list of marketing authorization holders that are permitted L2A or L2B access for each of the ISSRs in the database. Marketing authorization holders do not need to set filters for substances or product names to perform the export of ISSRs. Only the dates for the extraction need to be set. The dates used for ISSR exports are based on recoding events made against suspect drugs, substances or product names within an ISSR against the Article 57 EVMPD data. I am now going to demonstrate the ISSR export functions from the EVWEB tool and logging in as a marketing authorization holder test account. You will see that in this current version of the tool, bulk export is the name of the export function. This will be updated to ISSR export by the time that this system becomes available to external parties. The maximum date range for export is 2 weeks. This limit is in order to restrict the number of ISSRs exported in one request. As the exportable data is available up to the end of the previous day, you should not use the current date as the end date. From the reports section, you can select what type of export you want to perform. So this could be a PV obligation report L2A access, the case narrative request L2B, if your user ID has the permission to perform such a request, medical literature monitoring, and a combination of the L2 Pharmacovigilance obligation reports along with the M&M reports. The maximum date range for export is restricted to 2 weeks. This is in order to limit the number of ISSRs exported in one result. As the exportable data is available up to the end of the previous day, you should not use the current day as the end date. The first thing to do is to perform a count to check how many ISSRs are available for download during the period specified. This will show you how many ISSRs have been matched with your Article 57 EVWEB data within the time period you have specified. There is no need to specify product or substance names as criteria for L2A access. The next step is to give the request a name and submit the request. The request will be in a pending state until it has been processed and the ISSRs are available for download. The status will change upon completion. You can refresh the page by using these arrows. In order to download the files, open the request and select Download. The system will prompt you that the file is now ready for download. Depending on the browser you're using, the file will be downloaded to the default Downloads directory. Each individual ISSR will be in a separate XML file. Please note that the Export Manager uses E2B R3 for downloads. The files will remain available for download for a limited period of time before they will be archived. You should note that it's not possible to download files that have the status archived. We will now perform a case narrative request. It should be noted that only users with appropriate access permissions can perform requests for case narratives. In most cases, this will be the EU QPPV and their deputies. After selecting the case narrative request, you will need to add an additional criteria of the well-read case ID. The filter allows multiple ISSRs to be entered. The dates are not mandatory for these type of requests. Next, select the count to ensure that you're retrieving the reports that you're requesting. Please note that you'll also download initials and follow-ups of the submitted cases. Provide a name for the request and press the request button. After submitting the request, a pop-up will come to confirm that you are making this request in line with the obligations published in the Good Vigilance Practice modules. If you are, press yes to confirm, and you will need to provide a reason for the request. At the time of go live, this request may be changed from a free text box into a selection of default options. Press save and the request will go into the system. Press the refresh button to find out the status of the request. As you can see, the status is complete, and as before, the request is ready for download. In order to remove optional filters, you can either press the X or press reset. The same process can be run for MLM reports. However, as MLM reports have level 3 access for all organizations using EVWEB, you may want to restrict the search to products for which you have a marketing authorization. To add a restriction to the active substances of interest, choose Active Substance MLM Group. And select the active substance of interest, in this case paracetamol. Press update to add it to the filter, and then perform a count to see if their case is available to download. Again, enter request name and request the report. The status will be pending again until the request has been processed. And through the same process you can download to your local system. There is a separate training module on the MLM service that you can follow if you want to find out more information about it. If you regularly perform the same query in the ISSR Export Manager, you also have the option to save the query by using the Save Query function. You can download the search criteria as a file, and the same file can be uploaded using the Upload button. Please note, you will still need to change the dates each time you run the query. There are other places within the EVWEB tool where it is possible to export ISSRs, which we'll look at now. The web trader inbox and outbox are places where you can also export the files using the XML option. As these are files that have been sent by you or to you, you have full L3 access. The same process applies for downloading the files. The tool also allows you to export in human readable format. The Search ISSR section of EVWEB will also allow you to export ISSRs. These ISSRs will be accessible at the different levels of the access policy depending on your permissions. This tool is useful if you have identified ISSRs through the line listings in EVDAS that you wish to download. If you have extracted the worldwide case ID, you can just paste the ID into the quick search function to retrieve the ISSR of interest. You can then download the ISSR as XML R3. As you would do normally from the ISSR Export Manager. Please note, if you need the case narrative and have the necessary access policy permissions, you will need to use the ISSR export function that was shown earlier. In addition to the XML format, you can also export in human readable formats, such as the ISSR form, RTF and HTML. So to recap, in this training module, we have seen the implementation of the access policy in EVWEB and EVWEB. We've seen how to perform an ISSR export at levels L2A and L2B for pharmacovigilance obligations. We've seen how to export MLM service cases and how to export previously sent ISSRs. Feedback forms for any comments you have about this training module. Thank you for your attention.